Wow, everybody, it is my greatest pleasure and honour to introduce two of our wonderful, amazing people of our space, one professional auntie and a foot soldier of hope, and our current executive director for Rainbow Youth. Please give it up for Anya and Pooja. Haere mai.
Testing. It works, eh? Ka tangi te titi, ka tangi te kaka, ka tangi hoki aho. Ti hei mauri ora. Ki te mata I te rangi, tēnā koe. Ki te whare e tūnei, ki te papa e tākoto nei, tēnā kōrua. Me mihi au ki o tātou, tini mate kua pahure atu ki te pō, haere, haere, haere atu rā. Ki a tātou te honga ora, me ngā whānau o taiohitanga, nau mai haere mai. Ko tēnei taku mihi ki ngā tangata whenua o te rohe nei, ka mihi hoki au ki ngā tohu o te rohe nei. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko erihia te whakapaparanga mai, engari ko Oman te whenua tupu. Ke tāmaki makauro e noho ana, he kai whakahaere au ki Rainbow Youth, ko Pooja Subramanian tōku ingoa. Mōrena koutou katoa. Let's bring a bit more energy in here, come on. I am truly living my Beyonce moment today. Mōrena everybody, my name is Pooja. I am the current executive director of Rainbow Youth. My whānau come from Tamil Nadu in South India, and we moved to Aotearoa about 20 odd years ago. For those of you who don't know what Rainbow Youth does, we're a national charity that provides... Sorry. We are a national charity that provides support, information, advocacy and resources for Rainbow young people across Aotearoa. I've had the privilege of being in this space for about 6 or so years, and this is my first time speaking to this many people, so apologise my nerves. When I was first asked to speak at this conference, my initial reaction was giving imposter syndrome, and honestly, I was like, Janie, sure. Turns out someone else from the rainbow sector actually dobbed me in, so Jono, thank you for making me nervous. My second reaction was to actually kind of chat GPT it and call it a day, but my best friend told me that wasn't a vibe. So doing it with Anya, who is going to introduce herself, and we're kind of going to keep it casual today. We're going to do kind of auntie vibes sitting on the couch. And anybody who knows us knows we don't like to lecture people. So yeah, mōrena koutou. Is this thing on?
Tuhia ki te whenua, tuhia ki te rangi, tuhia ki te ngākau o ngā tangata, ko te mea nui, ko te aroha, te hei mauri ora. Tēnei te mihi ki a koutou katoa, huge mihi to all of you. Pooja and I are just beyond excited to talk to you this morning, and what an honour and a privilege not only to speak with all of you, but actually also to speak alongside my teina. And we're going to share some intergenerational reflections. You missed these beautiful photos of Pooja with her whānau. Who are we? Together, we whakapapa to the same place, India, but we come from different diasporas. And we also come from different generations. We share a connection to mana taiōhi principles, to working in support of young people. We share a whole lot of common beliefs and mātauranga around leadership and what it takes to change the world for the better. And that is what we are speaking to you from our points of similarity, our intersections, and also our points of difference. So what we have prepared for you today is some reflections about what it takes to change the world for our young people, and what that means to both of us is that actually it means staying angry and hopeful at the same time. So we've got some reflections about that, and we've split our kōrero into these 3 sections, and there's actually something that we're going to ask from you all during each of these sections. So the first part, we're going to talk about connection. We're going to talk about our connection to purpose as something that sustains us for the long haul in this sector, in this work. Can you throw a hand up in the air if you've been to another Involve conference? I'm so curious. Too much. Well, ka nui te mihi a koutou katoa to those of you who've been in this work for the long haul. And for those of you, can you throw your hand up if this is the first Involve conference that you've been to? Oh, too much. Awesome. Love the first timers. Let this not be the last Involve conference that you make it to. I'm going to bounce back actually because I realised that I didn't actually say who I am. So, ko waio, ko Anya Satyanand tōku ingoa no inia me whiti me kotirani oku tipuna kei te noho au ki tāmaki makaurau. I have been in this work, I think forever, actually, in the field of believing in young people and working alongside young people and removing obstacles and, attempting to provide the young people in my world with what they need to thrive in te ao huri. So I'm a recovering media studies teacher. Yeah, I know. I'm a late-breaking youth worker, so I came to the field of youth development late in life, but I bring kind of like extra sizzle and belief because I came to it so late from teaching. I came to work for Aotearoa actually. I had the huge privilege of coming to work for Aotearoa in 2015 and found my people. So to all of you, there's a community of practice here represented at Involve, a collective that, Pooja and I believe can sustain each of you in this work over the long haul. So I'm also the great-granddaughter of Giromitias who came from the very north of India and the very south of India to work in the sugarcane plantations as labourers, one at the very beginning of the Giromitia period and one at the very end of the Giromitia period, which is basically indentured labour. My grandparents on my dad's side came to Aotearoa, came to Tāmaki Makaurau actually in the 30s, and on my mum's side I am Pākehā tracing back to Scotland. So I've got a number of different stories that I'm going to share with you, but that's enough about me. Recovering media studies teacher, late-breaking youth worker, leadership development enthusiast.
I don't know what this one's about.
Yeah, I can speak to this one, Pooja. So this is about purpose, and I want to. He's going to get too many shout-outs across the course of the day, but this is a screenshot that Rob Baxter sent me about the caterpillar's experience of the chrysalis, right? And I would like to suggest that right now, collectively, we're in a chrysalis. We're in a state of metamorphosis. We're in a state of transformation. And this state of transformation is not a particularly comfortable place. We're going to talk a bit about that, right? We're going to talk a bit about what's difficult in the world at the moment, particularly for our rangatahi. But it is from a place of kind of darkness and terrifying transformation that great things emerge. We fall apart to become new. We go through the dark to fly in the sun. So our encouragement to you across the course of our kōrero with you this morning is to think about what is that future that we're heading towards together, and what is there around you to sustain you on that journey. And this is our first kind of patai for you, is we'd love you to have just a moment to think about these questions. What was your pathway into this work, into your work with young people? Were there giants who kind of encouraged you on the way, who have supported you on the way, have believed in you, have encouraged you, have inspired you? And then who might you be that giant for in your world? We'd love you to have a bit of a kōrero with the person next to you about these three questions. One.
To your right.
Yeah. To your right, yeah. What was your pathway into this work? Who are your giants? Who are you a giant for? Kia koutou.
Just kidding, go to your left.
Kia ora everyone. We know that these conversations could go all day, and we hope they do. You can pick up this conversation in break time. We love that you are going to have an opportunity to talk to that person again and again during our kōrero.
I want to hear from someone about what their connection story was, so I feel comfortable sharing mine. I'm going to pick on the Rainbow Youth team right in front of me. Which one is? Basil. Woo! Go Basil!
Kia ora, I'm Basil. I'm a support worker at Rainbow Youth, and Pooja is my boss.
Period.
My pathway into this work was I was in university doing a bachelor's in psychology, and one of the courses I did was like a mentorship program for young people, and it was young people that were in like alternative education spaces, so they had been excluded from mainstream education. And while I was doing it, I really, really enjoyed it. I made a lot of genuine, meaningful connections with the young people I was working with. And then my lecturer was like, hey, Basil, you're like really good at this. I was like, thank you. And then she asked me if I wanted a job doing mentorship and youth work for ACEs, doing alternative education. And I said, yes, please. I really like doing this. And then I got to Rainbow Youth. Yeah, through that. Like I worked there for a bit.
I love that. Thank you, Basil. Can I get a show of hands who kind of joined this space to find connection? Where the gays at? Who got into this space because it made you mad? Yeah, period. For me, it was really just, I think, connection that brought me to this space, and I guess really thinking about the question before around who our giants were. Sorry to embarrass you, but Anya was definitely one of my giants. For me, I never really saw anybody who looked like me, talked like me, was from a similar experience as me. So being able to see Anya just in this space, you know, being her like kooky media studies vibe, always trying to do some like conceptual interactive stuff, randomly, you know, bursting into song, that kind of stuff. I think that really kind of allowed me to believe that I was also allowed any room in this space. And I think the other kind of main reason was, yeah, I guess wanting to connect to those people like me, not just kind of look up to people, but also connect to them. I wanted to also, I guess, feel a sense of having peers together in community, and I think moments like this at Involve is really where we can strengthen those. And I guess the other, should we get into anger? The main reason I think I really got into this work was anger. Let's put our hands up again for anger. Who did it because it pissed you off? Period. There's a lot of us. As a bisexual person, I reckon it's my birthright to blame astrology for, most of my personality traits. And as an Aries rising, anger is really inside of me. And anger was really the main reason that I feel like I joined this work. I was pissed off that nobody looked like me. I was angry that the services that were around could never support whānau like mine. I was angry that no one could speak the languages that I speak. I was angry that my high school teacher told me I wouldn't amount to nothing. Mrs. Stevens, if you're out there, look at me now, honestly. Yeah, I was angry about racism. I was angry that there's not enough brown people in this space, that the table is set up in a way that isn't really set up for us to succeed. I was angry that we're just kind of putting little band-aids on a system that's really kind of got many holes in it, and your band-aid is not waterproof. And yeah, I think anger for us is really, can be generative. It can be sometimes feel like something that's depleting you, it's draining you. But for me, anger is really the kind of like sustenance that keeps me going. And I'm sure my team at Rainbow Youth will agree that anger is really a vibe.
Anger is a vibe, eh? And we're kind of burning through some anger fumes at the moment. Like, I feel it really intensely as we lead up towards the election. I just want to mihi to Jane and Kirsten for the pledge, because actually there's a lot in our world at the moment, a lot of discourse, a lot of conversations about young people that make me quite angry, and that generate a different kind of anger and a different demographic to me, right? Like, people are feeling fear and anger. So we'd love to know from you all, what are the things that you feel angry about? What are the things that you see impacting negatively on the young people in your world? Knowing that actually anger can catalyse action. Anger takes us forward a lot of the time. Anger can be a really productive emotional response, and a rational emotional response to a world that is irrational a lot of the time. And we'd love you to jump on Slido and tell us all about those things. What are the things in your world that you see impacting negatively on young people, that make you mad? Tell us.
Okay. Does anybody not know how to use Slido? Put your hand up. All right. We go to slido.com. First step. It'll ask you to enter a code, and it'll just be the numbers on top of my head. You can also scan the QR code to go into your camera app, put the code in the frame, and then it'll take you there. Oh, some very fast people. I love it.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. Yes. Ākuhata.
Not the Chris's. A lot of vaping on there.
Whānau, so many points of similarity, so many kind of clear patterns coming through, so much convergence actually in terms of what makes you all mad. And I would hazard a guess that actually these things make the young people in your world mad as well. And these are not the things necessarily that we're hearing spoken about, hey, and certainly in political debates, in terms of the mainstream conversation that's going on about the world right now. Āotearoa, this is such good data for Aotearoa to use, and actually, hopefully it's really reassuring to hear and see that actually there are so many people who are feeling the same sense of frustration about the world that young people are growing up in right now. Tēnei te mihi ki a koutou, thank you so much for jumping in there. I reckon if Pooja and I had been asked to anticipate what you might write, we probably would have come up with a pretty similar list, eh?
Definitely.
Definitely.
How many people do we have in this room, Jane? Cool. So we've got 300 so far. Let's get some more in there. If someone doesn't know how to use it, please help the person next to you. Or use your phone to give the answer. Tony?
Who's Tony?
Sounds like a you problem. I don't know. I just said Tony.
Yeah. As an Aaron as well, so takatāpui.
Okay, let's not
what
turn on our
we might do is
friends.
return to this slide, whānau. We might return to this slide at the end and throw this back up on stage, but this is incredible data. So I thought I would, sorry, not sorry, I thought I would dive into a little bit of Media Studies 101, right? And tell you a little bit about moral panics, because actually I think we are witnessing once again, it's like Groundhog Day with these election campaigns, we're witnessing again a bit of a moral panic, or several at once actually going on in our world right now. Now, Aotearoa has some serious game in terms of moral panics about young people. In lots of ways, we birthed kind of one of the most famous, globally, the most famous moral panics about young people in 1954 with the launch of the Mazengarb report. Who's here from the Hutt Valley? Have we got some whānau here? Kia ora, ngā mihi, yep, te awa kairangi in the house. So the Mazengarb report was an inquiry into teenage delinquency in the Hutt Valley. It spoke in dire terms about the kind of fraying of the moral fabric that was as a result of young people visiting milk bars and having haircuts that at that time were considered quite extreme. We have gone on on a pretty predictable cycle, experience moral panics about young people, and some of these might feel quite familiar to you, right? Who remembers boy races and the birth of Crusher Collins from back in the day? Yeah? We have got a particular problem with freaking out about what young people are up to, and it's a generational response that we have where conservative mainstream culture loses their mind about some dimension of youth culture that they don't quite understand and that they perceive as like the end of the freaking world, the apocalypse. So boy races were the horsemen of the apocalypse back circa 2013, I remember that. Last year we had another moral panic about ram raids, and this year we've witnessed another set of moral panics really that have impacted with particular weight for our trans young people, but actually young people in general in terms of this election campaign have been placed in the crosshairs of lots of political parties, dire predictions and policy assaults. So, one of the things about moral panics is that it is about mainstream culture losing their mind about something that young people are doing. But essentially what they do what a moral panic does is it dehumanizes a group, right? It dehumanizes the group who are at the center of the moral panic. We freak out about them, we other them, we make them into something that is actually, it's not quite human. And that is what's going on right now in terms of Aotearoa politics and young people. So what does this mean in terms of anger? Well, whānau sitting in the room right here, we have some agency and we have some influence in terms of speaking truth to power, and in terms of saying what we know the reality for young people is in Aotearoa, New Zealand, that actually they face huge barriers and challenges that our politicians have a responsibility to remove and address. And we also have agency and influence in terms of encouraging our young people to engage as participants in our political process. So one of the things that happens in a moral panic is that our nervous system gets activated. And when you think about this in terms of the sort of effects that it produces for us, when we see like yet another story about a ram raid or young people kind of transgressing the boundaries of what mainstream society sees as acceptable, that actually what happens is we end up in fight, flight and freeze. So our nervous system kicks off, it makes us respond in particular ways, and in ways that are not always rational. And that is exactly what happens in the lead up to every election campaign, and never more so than an election campaign where algorithms are getting deployed to shoot social media content to audiences who we know will be most affected by these messages. So I don't know if you remember this, but there was some AI images that got generated in the early part of the election campaign earlier this year. AI images that were produced to kind of elevate people's nervous systems, throw people into stress and panic, and actually catalyse action. And lots of political parties are using these. This is not just one corner of the political spectrum. But, I mean, it's more prevalent on one. So, how do we respond to this? And my real encouragement and invitation, our real encouragement and invitation to you all is to step into your agency and influence. When you are asked to make another group of people into a them, as opposed to an us, decode that, question it, critically engage with it. Support your young people to do the same. This is what the youth sector is all about, creating an us big enough that our young people will fit into. This is the stuff that we should be getting angry about, that actually there are very vulnerable groups in our population of young people, our treasured rangatahi, who are being very deliberately targeted and othered. And it's our responsibility, I believe, as a sector to not only hold space for them that is safe and that encourages them to grow and develop as young people, but actually also to kind of question those messages when they're coming at us. And that is, I guess, where our magic formula of connection plus anger equals hope comes from. Because ultimately, Pooja and I feel angry about a bunch of things, but when we feel connected, hope is possible. And in your work every day with young people, you build a relationship with a future that is hopeful. That's the nature of our work, isn't it? That we live, work, walk in relationship with a future that actually, it does make us hopeful, because we know the young people. And we can see what they are imagining and hoping and working towards.
Cool. Now we're going to do the thing again where we get interactive. For this one, I think we want you to, I guess, not talk to anybody next to you and just think about, I guess, an action in your work, your life, your day-to-day that you feel like those people that you, I guess, were your giants in this work would be proud of. That could be, I don't know, when you stood up for something, when you stood up for yourself, when you felt a bit of confidence, when you felt really organized, and really just kind of imagine it in your head. Ideally, you'd write it down. I can see a few books there. So I think writing it down is going to make sure you stay accountable. So we're going to take a very silent minute. If I see you talking, you got to come up here and sing a Beyonce song. Damn, now everyone stopped talking.
Too much. Well, I mean, I would love to hear from every person in the room, but I wonder if one way around that is to just quickly share it with the person next to you, and then we will kick it. I would love you all to voice that thing that you just thought of to somebody. Turn to the person next to you and just share it quickly. So, whānau, we thought we'd finish off with, Pooja and I have got like lots of different connections. And one of our connections, and I just want to mihi to whānau in the whare who connect in one way or another with Leadership New Zealand, with Pū Manawa Kaiarahi. I did the program with my sister Briley Birch, who's here in the front row, in 2018. And we've got a few other whānau in the room. I want to acknowledge Red Nicholson,
Momo,
the amazing Mo, all the way from Whangarei, and Pooja, who all did the program last year, did the New Zealand Leadership Program last year. So we're a little bit nerdy about leadership. Is that fair, Pooja?
I'm not a nerd.
She is a nerd. I just think you need to step into that and embrace it. But we're also, like, I think Pooja and I had some deep chats about the problems that we have with the word leadership, with the idea of leadership, and how it is often spoken about and understood in our culture. Like, often we think of leadership as something that one person does and is.
Or like a hierarchy.
That it's hierarchical, that it is power over, that it is not a collective pursuit. And actually, that's one thing that, you know, in acknowledging whānau here from the LNZ community, like, actually we understand that leadership it's a collective, and there's so much leadership in the room right here. So speaking to that leadership that's in the room right here, I really wanted to share some whakaaro from another, damn it, Rod Baxter initiated enthusiasm of mine, Ms. Marvel. Can you throw a hand up if you've watched the series Ms. Marvel on Disney Plus? Yes, awesome.
Okay, it's giving
Love
niche.
that for us. What's that?
It's giving niche. I feel like there weren't that many
It is
hands.
quite niche, so I feel like maybe a little bit of context is required here. Ms. Marvel is a series about a superhero who is a young Pakistani American woman. She is conferred with superpowers when she slips on a bracelet belonging to her grandmother that she finds in the attic. All of a sudden she gets stretchy, she gets strong, she can throw stuff that then kind of materializes into matter and stays suspended in space. All sorts of cool stuff that she can do. Her superpowers know no ends. And she, for me, manifests so many of the qualities that I think are needed in terms of leadership in the 21st century. So here are 5 of them. The first one, her superpowers come from her grandmother. And in this way, she demonstrates that your whakapapa is a source of limitless strength. Tēnei te mihi ki a koe to the person who said that rediscovering her culture was one of the things that her giant would feel proud of. And this is something that I think more and more we're coming to understand. And I really encourage you to think about this in terms of your leadership. Knowing who you are on this whenua is such an important dimension of leadership in the 21st century. Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, all of a sudden has all sorts of new powers that belong to her that she's not familiar with. So her first mission is to understand what her superpowers are, to play with them, to get confident with them, and that is the encouragement to each of you. Each of you have superpowers that belong to you and you only, strengths and magic that is yours. So getting familiar and comfortable and knowing what your strengths are and your magic is, that is another kind of fundamental po in leadership, knowing what your strengths are and growing from those places. Do that and you will be an amazing leader. Know who the bad guys are, whānau. So like fighting the real bad guys, that is what we're all here to do. And I just link back to that whakaaro that Pooja shared around, like, what makes you angry? Where are the places to direct our energy at collectively to make the greatest possible change? Understanding who the bad guys are, racism, inequality, inequity, transphobia, and climate change. These are where we need to be focusing our energy on. And this is not Kamala Khan. It is actually Matua Moana Jackson, but it's true. She walks this in the world. We are not alone in our struggle. We stand in the light of our ancestors, and we also stand in the light of our intergenerational sector relationships and our relationships with each other. These are the relationships that actually are going to help us to change the world for the better. Because we need to leave the world better than when we found it.
That's the equation, just in case you didn't get it.
So, whānau, we are inviting you into your strategic anger. We're inviting you into your connections across the sector. We are inviting you to, if it's your first Involve conference, go find someone who's been to 5. If you've been to 5, go find a first timer. Build some relationships across the sector that help you to stay connected with your own sense of purpose, and also recognise that your presence here makes a difference. It makes a difference for the young people that you work with, but it also makes a difference for the people around you.
Definitely. I think sometimes these spaces can be a bit of like a professional development tick box vibe, and I think unless we really kind of find our allies in the struggle, our people who are going to let us, be the shady venting person that you need to be in order to make it strategic, this is really the space for it. There's probably no other time in the country or in the city that we're ever going to be able to have this moment, so I really hope that people are able to kind of get that sense of community from Involve. We're going to finish with one. I made Anya say this quote that she always says, and the first time she said it, I cried. I was really tired, but it's also, I guess, a nice way to kind of round it off on a hopeful vibe. She's also got some pictures to go with it. Aww.
So, like in the world, in your organisations, in any living system, actually at any time, there are 2 processes going on. And the first one is the process of decay, right? Things coming to an end. Ways of doing things, relationships, beliefs, values. There are things that are actually finishing. And a lot of what we have to do in our work is attend to the humanity of that, because people will have human responses to that, of grief, of sadness, of loss. And so part of the challenge of our work is to take care of humans who are coming to terms with the fact that actually the world that we are living in is not the same world that it was 5 years ago. And as we head into a future where climate change is having accelerating effects, actually this idea of decay and of things coming to an end and things actually needing to be brought to an end quite rapidly, this idea of decay is going to become even more important and present, and we need to be awake to it. We need to be alive to it in our work and in how we look after young people. So the comparison here is that actually we kind of need to be hospice workers. We need to be able to deploy the kind of care and attention, the kind of love that nurses, doctors, all of the people who work in that system bring in their work. So that's the first part of, that's the first process that's present in the world right now. It's present in your organisation. It's present in lots of our institutions, is this idea that things are coming to an end, and actually we, as kaimahi, as leaders working in that system, we really need to attend to the humanity of that. And the second process that's going on is this, the process of emergence, the process of new life, of new things, of innovation, of newness that is taking place. And this is in your organisations, it's in your institutions, it's in our world more generally. There are new things being made and created, and young people are such a generative force in terms of this stuff. I would hazard a guess and say that actually your work alongside young people requires that you are midwives, right? Midwives to this world that is emerging. That we tend not only to the humanity of loss that we're experiencing as the world changes, but that we're also attending to the kind of joy and risk and terror of birth and of new life, that we're resourcing all of that new stuff that is emerging, as well as attending to the things that are coming to an end. So that is, it's an encouragement to you all to think about your work in terms of noticing what's coming to an end, noticing what's being born, and bringing your superpowers, your strengths, your skills to take care of the humanity that sits at the centre of both of those processes. We want you to get angry, to get organised, to get real, to sign the pledge, to get your young people up and in amongst the political discussions that are going on right now, to speak truth to power, to notice moral panics when they're happening, and to kind of hit pause on them and point it out to the people around you.
Yeah, I think we're exactly 60 days away from election.
And it matters, eh? This election really matters. It matters for the young people in your world. We're not telling you how to vote, whānau, but we're telling you that it really matters, and activating young people's sense of their own agency and influence, not just in terms of voting, but every other dimension of political participation is super important.
Cool.
And that's us.
Thank you.
Nei rā te mihi. A tuatahi, before you go, mai mātou kia koutou, nei rā te mihi atu kia koruatahi, for sharing your beautiful kōrero with us. We have a small koha for you. Is it a hori? Ooh. But thank you both. Ho mai te pakapaki e te whānau.